Alright, football fans, the NFL draft is getting closer and closer. And the evaluations, the rumors, and yes, the drama are reaching a fever pitch. We often hear what fans and analysts think about the top prospects. But what about the teams themselves? What are the coaches and executives saying behind closed doors? Well, some explosive comments about one of the most polarizing figures in this draft class have just surfaced. And they are, to put it mildly, brutal. We're talking about Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback from Colorado. If you thought the debate around Shedeur among fans online was intense, wait until you hear what one anonymous NFL assistant coach reportedly said about him. According to the NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, this coach delivered perhaps the most scathing assessment of a top prospect's interview performance you might ever hear. He called his formal interview with Sanders, "the worst formal interview I've ever been in my life." The worst formal interview I've ever been in my life. Just let that sink in for a second. This isn't coming from a blogger or a random person on social media. This is a longtime NFL assistant coach. Someone who has likely interviewed dozens, maybe hundreds, of college prospects over the years. For this interview to stand out as the absolute worst? That's a powerful statement. And the criticism didn't stop there. This same anonymous coach didn't pull any punches, ripping into multiple aspects of Shedeur's perceived demeanor and on-field performance. The quote continued, "He's so entitled. He takes unnecessary sacks. He never plays on time. He has horrible body language. He blames teammates. But the biggest thing is, he's not that good. Wow. Just, wow. Entitled. Horrible body language. Blames teammates. Not that good." These are incredibly harsh words, touching on attitude, leadership, coachability, and even raw talent. Now, it's crucial to take this with a grain of salt. This is an anonymous quote. The coach didn't put their name on it. And in the lead up to the draft, you see all sorts of things leak out. Some of it is genuine concern. Some of it is absolutely strategic. Could this coach be on a team picking later in the first round who secretly loves Shedeur and wants to scare other teams away, hoping he falls to them? It's the classic smokescreen theory. And it's definitely a possibility. Without a name attached, it's impossible to know the true motivation or even the full context of the interview. However, while we must consider the source and the anonymity, we also can't completely ignore the content. It's rare to hear that level of negativity from someone supposedly within NFL circles, even anonymously. And it wasn't a completely isolated sentiment. Pelissero also spoke to an AFC executive who, while more measured, echoed a similar feeling about their interview with Sanders, simply stating, "It didn't go great in our interview." So, at least one other team came away from their conversation with Shedeur feeling underwhelmed. Perhaps the most illuminating perspective Pelissero shared came from an NFC scouting director. This director seemed to offer a more nuanced view, suggesting that Shedeur isn't necessarily a bad kid, but that his background might not have prepared him for the realities of an NFL locker room. This director pointed out that Shedeur has been so insulated. He's grown up with incredible access, privilege, and a level of protection and catering that most players could only dream of, largely due to his father's status and influence. The scouting director explained that Shedeur could be in for a major culture shock when he enters an NFL building. In college, especially at Colorado under his father, he had significant input on the offensive game plan, personnel, and had a level of freedom to change plays at the line of scrimmage without facing much, if any, negative feedback or recourse. As the director put it, the quote highlighted that in a real locker room, in the NFL, no one's going to give a S*** about that. No one cares who your dad is. You're going to have to end up fighting through some adversity. You won't always get the plays you want. And if you make independent decisions that don't work, you'll get called out, and likely, get your ass ripped so bad that you never want to do it again. This perspective paints a picture of a talented player who might have some significant adjustments to make regarding accountability, working within a strict system, and navigating the complex social dynamics of a professional locker room where every player is an elite athlete vying for their own career. It doesn't pass judgment on whether Shedeur can make that transition, but it certainly flags it as a potential challenge. Given all this public scrutiny and criticism, especially the harsh nature of the anonymous coach's comments, It's impossible not to think about Deion Sanders' role in all of this. Deion, Shedeur's father and coach at both Jackson State and Colorado, is famously protective of his sons and is never shy about speaking his mind. He's often quick to defend Shedeur publicly against criticism. When asked about these recent critiques, Deion reportedly found most of it laughable, telling USA Today that much of it is so stupid it don't make sense. Deion's fierce protectiveness and willingness to engage publicly is part of his brand. But it's also something that reportedly gives some NFL teams pause. The thought of potentially dealing with public call-outs from Coach Prime whenever Shedeur faces criticism or adversity in the NFL is something some front offices might prefer to avoid. Despite these incredibly harsh words and potential concerns about his transition, it's important to remember where Shedeur Sanders currently stands in the eyes of most draft analysts and scouts who are willing to go on the record. He is still widely considered the consensus second-best quarterback prospect in the 2025 NFL Draft, behind only Cam Ward, who is often projected to go first overall. This suggests that while teams may have concerns about his interview performance, attitude, or adjustability, his talent level is still viewed as exceptionally high. Those who evaluate his potential purely from a football standpoint see a quarterback with a live arm, good accuracy, and playmaking ability, particularly when plays break down. However, many also agree that he's a player who likely needs the right environment to succeed, a good coaching staff, a solid offensive line, and the patience to help him develop and adapt to the NFL game and locker room culture. If these anonymous criticisms or interview concerns do cause Shedeur to slide slightly in the first round, perhaps falling out of the top 10 or even the top 15, while it might be a disappointment for him personally, it could paradoxically land him in a better situation. Going to a team with a stable organization, an established head coach, and a strong veteran presence in the locker room might be exactly what a player with the described potential transition challenges needs to thrive and ultimately silence the doubters. So, as the draft approaches, the questions surrounding Shedeur Sanders aren't just about his arm strength or his footwork anymore. They're about his interviews, his attitude, his adaptability, and how teams weigh those concerns against his significant talent. It's a fascinating storyline to follow, and how teams navigate these complex evaluations will be key to understanding where Shedeur Sanders lands, and what kind of opportunity he gets to prove the anonymous critics wrong. Alright, the NFL draft is getting closer, and while fans debate the top quarterbacks, some incredibly harsh words about one of the biggest names are coming out from inside the league. We're talking about Shedeur Sanders. And let me just read you what one anonymous longtime NFL assistant coach reportedly said about his formal interview. Quote, "The worst formal interview I've ever been in my life. He's so entitled. He takes unnecessary sacks. He never plays on time. He has horrible body language. He blames teammates. But the biggest thing is, he's not that good." End quote. Wow, the worst interview ever. So entitled. Not that good. That is some seriously stinging criticism, especially coming from someone inside an NFL team. This isn't just one coach either. The article mentions another executive saying his interview didn't go great, and a scouting director talking about him being insulated and facing a potential culture shock in a real NFL locker room where, quote, "No one cares who your dad is." They point to his influence at Colorado and a lack of accountability compared to what he'll face in the pros. Now, obviously, you have to take anonymous quotes with a grain of salt. Is it possible this is a strategic leak from a team later in the first round who loves Shedeur and wants him to fall? Absolutely. It's impossible to know for sure how much truth is in it when someone won't put their name on the record. But it's out there now. And these are clearly real sentiments from some people within the league. Deion Sanders, Shedeur's dad and coach, finds most of the criticism laughable and silly, which isn't surprising, though. It's also worth noting that Deion's tendency to publicly defend Shedeur could also be something NFL teams consider. Here's the wild part. Despite this incredibly negative feedback, Shedeur Sanders is still widely considered the consensus number 2 quarterback prospect for the 2025 draft, behind only Cam Ward. That tells you league evaluators who are willing to go on the record still see immense talent and promise there. So, where does that leave us? Shedeur is expected to go high. likely in the top half of the first round. But these anonymous comments inject a layer of uncertainty and potential drama. Does this criticism cause a team to pause? Does he slide slightly? And maybe more importantly, will landing with the right coaching staff and locker room environment be absolutely crucial for him to navigate that transition and prove all these anonymous doubters wrong? It's definitely one of the biggest storylines heading into next year's draft.